All right. Well, good morning and welcome to our drug delivery day. Today, you guys are all in for a treat. We have amazing presenters, an amazing lab, and you guys are going to be participating in this today, building your drug delivery system. And I hope you are all excited. We have Dr. Eric Einstedt, who's going to be leading us today. And I want you to know we love student engagement. Do not hesitate to type in chat if you have a question or a comment for our presenters. We have a bunch of ET staff on the line who is here to monitor that chat and make sure that everybody's question is heard. I will ask this, there's a little housekeeping involved. Please, if your school name or please change your Zoom profile to include your school name so we know who is with us today. We would love to be able to see who's with us and shout you all out. Again, we are so excited, and I'm going to stop speaking because you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from Dr. Eric Einstedt, who's going to be leading your day, and I hope you guys are all excited. So, Dr. Einstedt, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Monica. And I have to say, it's really great to have everybody here. I recognize a lot of the schools from way back when we used to do a lot of these labs live. So welcome back. And also, it's great to see we've got schools from all over the country involved here. So as you know, as you may not know, my name is Eric Einstedt. So I'm a chemical engineer. I was an undergrad at Cornell, and then I did a PhD in the University of Minnesota. And I've been working as an engineer, sometimes as an engineer, sometimes in other jobs, but for over 30 years. And I've been involved in Engineering Tomorrow from the beginning. And as you probably know, or hopefully you know, Engineering Tomorrow is all about kind of informing all of you guys about what engineering is about and the various fields that you can go into. The various areas in development and in construction and everywhere where engineering is important and a big part of the success. It's a career and it's a discipline where you're problem solving, you're designing and you're building, and you're using math and science skills. So the training in math and science is what's important. And today is really all about talking about how engineers come into the healthcare and medical fields. As you may know that we have other labs around bridges and renewable energy and a lot of things, but today is about healthcare. And we're going to talk specifically about drug delivery systems. But that's only one little area that engineering comes into play. Engineering in healthcare is also very deeply involved in the pharmaceutical industry, not only in drug delivery design, but also in manufacturing of medicines. Engineering is key to building of equipment for scanning. So if you've ever had an MRI or a CT scanner, these scanners that allow doctors to see what's inside of you, they're engineering. It's engineering that needs to go into designing those things. And not only the mechanics and the electronics, but also the software. That's all has to come together. Engineers are also very much involved in what I'll call lifestyle assistance. So designing prosthetics, designing equipment and systems to help people who have limitations live more full lives. And you're going to hear a lot more about that when our guest speaker, John Sexton, talks to you towards the end of the day. He's actually he's a senior electrical engineer right now at Notre Dame. And he's also the founder of a company. He's a CEO of a company called LifeDrive. So he's only like maybe 4, 5, 6 years older than you guys. And he's already using his engineering skills and his creativity to form a new company. And you'll hear a lot more about that. But then what we're going to talk about again is the drug delivery systems, how engineers fit into that. So during the day, you're also going to get a chance to meet some of our other mentors and college helpers. You'll meet Annie Zhao, who's a computer science major at Notre Dame, and Tiffany Jones, who's a chemical engineer student at Bucknell. So why don't we get started on the topic? We want to get you guys actually working on stuff. So I'm going to share my screen. If I can figure it out, we need that. We need to share sound. And hopefully you can see that. Can that be seen? I'll assume the answer is yes. And let's get started.
Looks great.
So, as I said, as you may know, Engineering Tomorrow, we develop these labs to inform you about what engineering is as a career, to give you opportunities to learn or to use the math and science topics that you've learned in high school and actually make them practical and applicable. And that's what engineering is. So as I said, I've worked for over 30 years in a variety of industries. And actually, one of them was the pharmaceutical industry. I worked at GE Medical Diagnostics for a short time. And medical diagnostics was a business where we actually fabricated and manufactured pharmaceutical injectables. And what that means is that these were chemicals that would be injected into a patient who was going to have a scan. So maybe an MRI scan or a CT scan. And what they do is they have a very specific chemicals that they'll inject into the body, and that'll make the scan image clearer. And the doctors then will be able to better identify any issues or what's going on. So I do have a little bit of experience in pharmaceuticals, but I want to stress that I'm not a medical doctor. I am more of an inorganic chemistry engineer, if you will. The other person who really designed this lab, I give her full credit, is a young lady named Maria Krug. She's a recent graduate of Notre Dame, also in chemical engineering. And she was really the brainchild behind this whole lab. She is now working at a company called AbbVie, which is a pharmaceutical company that uses biologics for developing and manufacturing pharmaceuticals. So what biologics means is that instead of just being basic chemicals that you're producing, you're actually using cells. You're using actually microbes that have been designed and that they are actually producing the important chemical. But again, it's all about engineering. It's all about chemical engineering, and she's done a great job putting this together and is now a professional engineer. So let's see here. So let's get to some of the basics so we can start to give you a little bit of background, and not only background about kind of what drug delivery is all about, but also what you're going to be eventually doing here today. So if we think about how pharmaceutical drugs and how they're administered, there's different ways that it can be done. Well, first of all, let me just explain. The pharmaceutical drugs, sometimes the active ingredient is called the API, or the active pharmaceutical ingredient. That is the actual material that is the material that treats whatever it is that has the effect on the body. So there are different ways of administering API or medicines or drugs. One is the very basic one, basically a pill. It's an oral administration. You would basically swallow it, and it goes down into your stomach or into your body, and it gets absorbed. And that's kind of the very basic one. So if you've ever taken an aspirin or an Advil or a Tylenol, that's oral administration of a API, of a pharmaceutical ingredient. Another way of getting the drugs into your body, and this can be done more quickly, is through an inhaler, so inhalation. So in that case, you're actually putting the medicine into your lungs, and it can very quickly then get into your bloodstream through the lungs, and it diffuses through your lung, the materials in your lungs, and gets into your bloodstream. So some of you may have inhalers. So you'll know what that looks like. A third way of getting medicines into your body is through intravenous injection. So this is a case where typically if you're in the hospital, you may have an IV tube or an intravenous tube that's directly in your blood system or bloodstream. So you're able to actually then inject medicines or drugs directly into your blood. Again, it's very quick and it's very effective, but it takes a lot of extra care you have to have a needle, you have to have sterile conditions, and usually it's only done in a hospital. And then finally, the fourth way of doing it is what's called subcutaneous injection, which is just another way of saying it's a shot. So we've just come out of COVID. Hopefully, most of you have actually had vaccines, COVID vaccines, to help protect you from future infections, or at least reducing the impact of the infections. And those shots in your arm are essentially just different ways of getting a medicine into your body so that your body can develop antibodies or basically respond to issues. So those are the four basic ways that pharmaceuticals can be administered. Now, of all those ways, they all kind of have important aspects to deciding which one you're going to use. And essentially what you want to do is you want to get drug delivery systems into your body so that the API, the pharmaceutical ingredient, can start acting. So essentially what you want to do is get the medicine to the right place in your body at the right time and at the right dosage. So some drugs, some medicines need to be more targeted than others. And a drug delivery system is how you design, how you target the delivery of that drug. So we have a little video. This is more of just an example of a complicated drug delivery system. I apologize, it's a cartoon and it's a little silly, but it does give you the sense and the explanation of some of the things you have to go into what decisions are made and how you design a drug delivery system. So hopefully you'll get some idea of a smart drug delivery system that's being developed at a university in Israel through this video.
One of the major problems in injecting medication such as chemotherapy is that the medication affects the entire body and not only the sick cells, and side effects can be very severe. Innovative research is currently developing a cunning drug delivery system. Ben-Gurion University scientists led by Professor Yossi Kost are developing a system to sneak medication like chemo or genes past the body's defense mechanisms and straight to their destination, even a cell organelle like the nucleus inside a cancer cell. The scientists are working to create nanoparticles made of a special polymer and a medication that can distinguish between healthy cells and cancerous cells. The nanoparticles are small enough to pass through tiny holes existing only in blood vessels surrounding cancerous growths. When the nanoparticles identify a sick cell by its external receptors, for example, they attach to the cell. But not all of the particles are able to penetrate the cell membrane. Here the researchers use ultrasound in an extraordinary way. They focus low-frequency ultrasound waves on the target spot to make a tiny and temporary opening that enables the particles to penetrate. Next, the particles need to get to the nucleus in order to release the medication. The smart polymer knows how to identify unique intracellular proteins that travel into the nucleus, and it hitches a ride on them. Once the particles reach their target, they need help releasing the medication from the polymer. The scientists again turn to ultrasound for help. The ultrasound waves are aimed at the target cells and the medication is released, while the rest of the body's cells are safe from side effects. The research combines the use of ultrasound, nanoparticles that identify sick cells, and smart guidance to the target point, all in an effort to provide effective healing without harmful side effects.
All right. So first of all, these nanoparticles, I hope you don't think that they all wear headsets and have anger issues. this is just again, it's just a representation of the various process steps that were being designed, that are designed by this group to try to target the medication and the treatment to very specific cancer cells. Don't know if you noticed, but when they introduced this, that was all being done in a chemical engineering department. So yeah, it sounds, and it is very much a medical application, but it's engineers that have to figure out or put engineering skills into play to figure out how best to do these, to develop these types of systems. So one of the things that comes up in engineering, particularly chemical engineering, is the concept of diffusion. And I'm sure you've heard of diffusion. If you kind of step through what happens when you take a pill, what happens, that the life cycle of that in your body, after you swallow the pill, it goes into your stomach, it gets broken down, and then the chemicals actually then start to move throughout your body, and then they have to be absorbed by the blood cells. And the representation here is basically the blood in your blood cells, your blood vessels, and that you want the medicine to go into your actual blood cell. So that happens through a process called diffusion. If you look at this kind of diagram on the bottom here, at kind of an early time, you have a lot of concentration, high concentration of your medicine on the outside of your blood, of your cells. And then over time, it kind of diffuses through the membrane of the blood cells. And eventually, the concentration is equal inside and outside. And that's basically kind of a key engineering concept that comes up over and over again in engineering and chemical engineering particularly, is that the diffusion process, the movement of these materials, occurs from a high concentration area to a low concentration area. And that is essentially what you have to wait for. So the time to diffuse is a critical element here. And then engineers are usually, in order to design systems and design processes, in particular processes that have to do with diffusion, they have to have a model. And this is a mathematical model, but they have to have a model for how to describe how fast something's going to happen or what's going to happen. And when it comes to diffusion, the model is called Fick's law. And essentially, Fick's law is a model that says that diffusion flux, so how fast something's going to diffuse, is going to depend on the concentration gradient between two areas. Now, diffusion is as I said, is a thing that you learn about in chemical engineering. I just thought I'd pull out my old diffusion book. I mean, there's whole classes on how this works and learning how to do this and how to analyze this. But in the end, the diffusion flux, which is J, is essentially the concentration gradient, which is represented as this derivative. So those of you who have had calculus and wonder where in the world can we use calculus, here's a place where calculus is actually used. And then what's key is this coefficient, the diffusion coefficient, and a lot of work, a lot of time is spent measuring and understanding what is it that, how big is the diffusion coefficient. So if you look at kind of representation here on the right, if let's say you had this is maybe a thought experiment. If you had a beaker or a glass of water, for example, and you injected some dye into the middle of it, first of all, the dye would be very, very dark in the middle of the water. And then over time, the molecules of the dye would start to diffuse from the high concentration area in the middle to the low concentration in the outside, and eventually you reach equilibrium. So again, diffusion is quite key process. So diffusion, again, is an area where chemical engineers are always using it, but also in biology, in biological systems, it's used. I mean, it's a phenomena that happens in water treatment, diffusion. There's a type of diffusion called osmosis that's often utilized in water treatment and cleaning of water. In cleaning of gases, there's something called gas scrubbing. So if you want to scrub out harmful gases from a combustion process, that has diffusion elements in it. And then, as I said, biological processes have diffusion, where you're moving oxygen and CO2 throughout your body and throughout your capillaries. So let's get more into what you're going to do, because you need to. You're going to be having a challenge here to develop a special type of drug delivery system. So let's talk about how drugs are designed. There's a couple of basics here. So if we have our API, or the drug layer, in pink here, typically what you want to do is you want to have that encapsulated by a coating so that you can handle the materials. So you open up a bottle of Advil or Tylenol, you want this to be something that doesn't melt in your hands. You want it to be a nice clean pill. But that outer layer is not what you actually, that's not actually the drug. That is called an enteric coating. So the coating, the enteric coating, is the shell that protects the drug. And quite often these coatings are made out of polymers, which are long chain repeating units, which have different properties, and very useful properties. And obviously, if it's going to be something that you swallow, it has to be safe. So you don't want it to be a dangerous material, so it has to be inert. But then it also has to have certain properties, like it has to dissolve. It has to dissolve at a certain rate. Maybe you don't want it to taste bad as it goes down. So if you look at a couple of different designs here, we can see something called an immediate release speed. With this one, you swallow it, and then as soon as the coating is dissolved, you'll get a straight shot of the drug will be released into your body. If you want to wait until that drug is released after it gets to your stomach, then first of all, you have to figure out how long is it going to take to get to the stomach, and you want to delay the release. So in that case, you might have an overcoating. You might have a polymer that delays the release. And then eventually, once it's in your stomach, the actual API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, will be released, which is where you want it to happen. So those are two very simple designs. Now, what if you want this medicine to release over a longer period of time? What you then might want to do is have it get into your stomach, release one layer, and then stop, let that work, and then dissolve more, and then release a second layer. And that's called a dual delayed release. And that's what you're going to be working on today. If we look at the plot on the right here, you can see that this is some data that shows the immediate release pill, which is in blue, which over time you get a high dosage, and then finally it tapers off. If you have a dual release pill, you first get an initial peak, and then there's a period of time, and then you get a second peak. So this can last longer, and this can be valuable because let's say that you don't want to take a pill every hour. Maybe what you can do is design a pill that releases slowly over time, and eventually, you can take a pill maybe twice a day or once a day instead of many times a day. An example of this is this medicine, which I can't pronounce, but it's actually used for acid reflux, and it's a good thing because acid reflux obviously is painful and is not good for your system. So you want to be releasing kind of a neutralization type of medicine over a longer period of time, so you don't have to continually be taking pills. So let's get to what you're going to work on. You're going to be building a dual drug delivery system, dual release drug delivery system. And as many of you may know, there's an engineering process. And the nice thing about engineering is that you design, you trial, it usually fails, you learn from it, you design again, and it's a constant process of continually learning. So you're really not failing when you get to that fail step, as I mentioned. It's more a learning step. So what we want you to do is think about what you've learned, the things that we've shown you, and how you might design a process, design a system, and then eventually observe what you see, learn from what you've observed in your experiment, and then maybe redesign it to be an even better system. So what we're going to do is ask you to design a drug delivery system that has a dual release, and we want the first pill to release at around 5 seconds after inserting it into the water, and then the second pill to release at around 30 seconds. So first of all, the pills that we've given you should not be eaten. They are just little colorful bath pills that little kids and maybe bigger kids likes to put in their bath water to make it turn color when you're having a bath. They are harmless, but again, they're not to be eaten. They're basically sodium bicarbonate. I have a yellow one and a blue one here. So that's going to be your API, if you will. We've also given you a sheet of paper, or maybe a couple of sheets of this paper, and it's not actually paper. This is a material called polyvinyl alcohol, and it's alcohol, but it's a solid. But that's just the chemical name of it. And what it is it's a polymer, and essentially it's quite firm. If I pull it apart, it doesn't break. But what's really cool about this is that it dissolves in water. So this could be one of your coatings. Now, you can also use other coatings. You can use tissue paper, toilet paper, or paper roll. Maybe if you have any plastic or some other type of writing paper. Those are all valid coatings you can use. We don't give you those because they're more readily available in your classrooms. This is the only kind of specialized material. But you want to think about how many times maybe what type of material do you want to coat these things with, these pills with? How many times do you want to coat it? There's a lot of decisions to be made, engineering decisions, to decide what's the best way to design this. And then we have show some paper clips. You can use paper clips to put them together. You can use a stapler, but you want to build a pill that you can actually test. So the lab is essentially build a dual release system with 2 different colored pills, and with whatever materials you have, and try to do an iteration or 2 to see if you can get the first pill to release at 5 seconds and the second pill to release at 30 seconds. So we have a little video just to give you some ideas. It's one thing to explain it to you, but let's just show you kind of an example of what this could look like. right. So that's how the lab goes. It's that simple, but there are a lot of parameters that you need to make decisions around, like what type of coating, how many layers of coating, how you want to tie it together. In the lab, we use tape. So these are all things to consider. And what we have are a couple of slides here that just gives you a kind of a template for documenting what you did and what material it was, what layers you used. And what we want to do is, again, you may have different colored tablets. I've got a yellow and blue. I think the video showed a yellow and a red. But you should be able to kind of figure out what's the release time of the first one as you see it, what's the release time of the second. And then you'll also be able to see a diffusion happening in front of your eyes, because you'll see it's very dark right near the pill, and the water eventually will become all a uniform color. So take some pictures of your materials. We'd love to see them at various times. We'd love to see what you come up with when we get to the wrap up later in the day. And again, just a couple more slides as far as documenting materials. You should have a student workbook, which I believe you'll be able to use for this. And finally, we just tried to put a little bit of math around, or economics around this. We want you to look at what is the cost of your system. Obviously, these are arbitrary costs, so don't feel like this is true costs of the system. In the pharmaceutical industry, the actual cost of the material in the pill is usually very, very low. What makes the U.S. pharmaceuticals expensive is that these companies need to have money to develop these drugs. So when you're buying your drugs, you're not only buying the drug itself, but you're also buying all the R&D and the development costs that go into it. So that's all we got. What we're going to do, I think, and Monica, let me stop sharing. I believe the next step is that they're going to go off. You'll all go off and do the lab, and we'll be coming back to you. And I think at midday you're going to get to talk to Annie and Tiffany, and then we'll do a wrap up. And then John Sexton will come and give you a little background and tell you his story. So yeah, there we go. There's the agenda.
I just put up the agenda for everybody. Our breakout rooms are now open. We have one breakout room, and we have 3 college engineering students in that breakout room to help you and assist you during the breakout time. We will close the breakout rooms at 11:30 to have you come back to have an official Q&A with our mentors. So I just want to let you all know that is what is happening, and we are excited. Please do. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you are having a phenomenal morning getting your designs underway. Right now, it's time for your college mentor Q&A, and we have Tiffany and Annie here to lead the session. This is your opportunity. These 2 mentors are going to introduce themselves, and then they're going to open the floor for you all to ask questions. So while they're introducing themselves, maybe you want to tell your teacher some questions you have for them. Do you have a question? Put them in the chat and we will get to them. I'm actually going to stop speaking because I'm not the star of this show, and I'm going to pass it off to Tiffany to lead us off. And I see Annie's here. Fantastic. Let's get underway. Tiffany, you can start your Q&A.
Great. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen. Me and Annie are just going to introduce ourselves, share where we've been, where we're headed to, and then open up the floor for questions. So hi again, my name is Tiffany. I'm a current junior at Bucknell University studying chemical engineering with a minor in food processes / food science. With engineering tomorrow, I'm a college mentor, so I help run Q&As throughout the semester. And then my main interests in engineering are cosmetics or food. So this upcoming summer, I'll be an intern for PepsiCo doing research and development. But just a little bit more about me. So my engineering journey sort of started over in high school. I know there's a lot going on this slide, but I'm starting at the left corner here. So in my high school, we had an engineering program. It was engineering, architecture, and design. So we spent our junior and senior years learning all about engineering, basically, in the different industries that we can go into. We learned about all the different disciplines within engineering, chemical engineering, mechanical, civil, environmental, the list goes on. So this was our EAD class. And so we actually did a couple of engineering tomorrow labs. So I guess everything sort of went full circle. But after I graduated, I came over to Bucknell University. I'm in the College of Engineering here. And a lot of these pictures are actually from Bucknell and my involvement when it comes to engineering. I'll start off with some of the clubs that I'm in. So AICHE is the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. And my first year, I had the great opportunity to go to a convention where a lot of students got to go present like research. There were career fairs. There are a lot of different societies that you can get involved with when it comes to your undergraduate experience, which is a really nice opportunity to network with other students and professionals. I'm also in NSBE, which is our National Society of Black Engineers. I'm president of our chapter here. So that's another good way to get involved when you're looking for a sense of community when it comes to engineering at whatever respective school you're at. Also here at Bucknell, I actually did drug delivery research. So this picture here of the little vessel there, that's a degradable hydrogel. And so basically the main goal of our research was to create these hydrogels so that it's used as an injectable, sort of similar to what you guys were learning previously with your intro lab. And so these hydrogels are made to be implanted into a human body and then basically degrade over time. So these are the type of gels that it wouldn't be an instant release. It's more of an overtime where they release more medicine as the period goes on. And so for my specific project, I was doing adhesion. So these little slabs, they're basically all plastics, but I was testing 8 different types of plastics that we would use to test the adhesion with the hydrogel. So basically learning how it would affect maybe different implants if you were some sort of patient that had an implant maybe in your arm or in your shoulder, seeing how the hydrogel interacted with those different types of plastics. So that was the research that I did. And then a couple of fun classes that sort of relate to my interest in engineering, especially chemical engineering. These 2 pictures here, this one is my class, and then this is a picture of our fermentation lab. So fermentation was basically a class learning about the process of fermentation, and a really common way of using that process is brewing beers. So throughout the semester, we had the awesome opportunity to brew all different types of beers. For our final project, we can do something creative. So a different group did like kimchi. That's another process that you can use fermentation. So that was really fun and definitely more aligned with what I'd like to do in terms of food. I was also a part of L'Oreal's Diverse Future Leaders Fellowship. This was another experience where you can basically showcase your education, both if you're going to engineering, there are also a lot of management students. So a really nice way, again, to network with other people. And then after I finish here at Bucknell, I plan to either be in food or cosmetics. So this upcoming summer, I'll be at PepsiCo, which I'm really excited for. I'm sure you've all had maybe either a snack or a beverage from the brand. So that's what I'll be doing with my chemical engineering degree.
Hi, everybody. My name's Annie. I'm a sophomore at the University of Notre Dame. I'm currently studying computer science and economics and maybe Chinese, we'll see. But yeah, I've kind of dabbled in so many different parts of the industry of whatever you may have it, you know. So I'm really excited to kind of share some of my insights into choosing a career path, figuring out what works best for you. Here at ET, I'm also a college mentor like Tiffany, and within computer science in general, I'm more interested in software engineering and data analytics. So my slide is not as pretty as Tiffany's, but basically, so I graduated high school in 2021. During this time, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. I was always more like a STEM person, but for the longest time, I was focused on pre-med. And so in high school, I did a bunch of pre-med clubs, did some pre-med summer programs and stuff. And ultimately, when I was applying to college, I applied as pre-med. And I think when I thought more about it later on, I decided that pre-med track wasn't for me. I didn't have the drive, the passion, or the personal desire to kind of go through the entire process. When I started my first year at Notre Dame, I realized I really liked computer science. And I tried that out and stuff, and I realized like I wanted to do something more. I didn't want to just be coding all day. So I also picked up economics. And right now I have a good amount of room in my schedule, so I might pick up Chinese as well. But that would depend. So last summer I spent my time in New York City, and that's where I kind of did my first like real adult internship, you know, living on your own and all that. And it was a ton of fun. I dabbled my toes, I guess, in a finance company in New York City, one of those big hedge fund investment type of firms. I was an ESG intern, which stands for environmental social governance. And basically that's a field where you're trying to socially be responsible in terms of investing, and you have to comply to a bunch of standards, frameworks, and all that. And so that was like my first internship, not exactly in engineering at all or even STEM, but it kind of gave me like some work experience, and it also showed me that I don't want to be in the finance world. Although I really enjoy economics, I'm not sure that finance is the right path for me, but that's an example of like something where I'm just trying out the job, you know, and seeing if I like it. And although I had the best time in New York City, I don't think that the job is the right fit for me. And finally, this summer, I plan on interning at PetSmart in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to be an IT analyst project manager. And that essentially, it's a very broad title. I'm not even too sure what I'll be doing, but it's probably more related to data analytics and the tech side of projects and stuff, and working out those type of kinks and innovations and stuff. In the future, I hope to land some sort of either another project manager internship or a software engineering internship. But this summer, I'm super excited to work at PetSmart. Yeah, and I went through the whole, you know, interview intern process stuff. And if anyone needs help on trying to figure out how to do that, both Tiffany and I can help. Yeah, I think of another slide. Yeah, so this is, I guess the arrows disappeared, but essentially that first picture, the top left, is me graduating high school. The second picture is like the only picture I have with the infamous Notre Dame dome. I also want to mention that I attend Notre Dame on a merit scholarship, and that, you know, took some applying and all that stuff. So if you guys are looking into applying for scholarships for college, I can definitely help out with that as well. The picture on the bottom right is next, and that would be me in New York City. It was a very cool function that my company hosted, and like on a rooftop and sunset, you know, it was really, really gorgeous, and I just had the best time there. And lastly, on the bottom left, this is me in Boston. I do some clubs on campus, and one of them is something that's essentially like tech consulting, and they're kind of like fake projects that people from actual companies give us to give us experience within consulting. And so this specific example, I led the Amazon project this past semester, and the entire semester we worked on like a specific case study, I guess, and we ended up going to Boston and presenting it to some workers at Amazon, and so that was super, super fun. Just another example of like trying out another field, and I was trying out tech consulting, and I don't hate it, so maybe we'll go there, but it does give you experience and stuff. So I guess overall, my general advice is I feel like I figured out what I want to do based on trying a bunch of things and realizing I didn't want to do that. But yeah, so now we can open it up to Q&A session. And we have one question already. Oh, there are the arrows. Okay. How important are research projects as a high school freshman to colleges / co-curricular programs? As a freshman, high school freshman, I don't think you need to worry about research too much. I mean, the transition from middle school to high school is already so big that I think that you should save research for maybe like at least your sophomore year or junior year. Unless you really, really know what you want to do, you already have experience in the field of research, then you know, go ahead. I don't think it's necessarily that important to colleges. Of course, like having those research experiences can be really great for your resume, for your college application. I'm not sure you need to really start from freshman year, especially because you might not have the scientific background to be conducting those research yet. Typically people start doing their like a project their junior year, senior year. either in a class or on their own and stuff. And by then you'll have like done actual labs in class and have experience on how to like write a lab report, right? Or like set up an experiment. So I wouldn't worry too much of your high school freshman year. I think that during that time you should be trying to either explore different things, join different clubs, or in your science classes, just like take note of like how you kind of set up an experiment and do all of that. Tiffany, do you have anything to add?
No, that was a really good way to put it. I think just echoing what Annie said, with your high school experience, a lot of it is just, getting used to having, those different classes. You want to definitely challenge yourselves, but I don't think, like Annie said, you have to necessarily focus on, a research project that you want to pick up, right then and there. Focus on maybe like different hobbies that you're in, because that'll be a really important part when it comes to preparing for college, because they're not only just looking for students to sit in a classroom, they're looking for people that, have things to do outside of just academics. So I would say for your high school experience, just focus on like challenging yourself and then getting involved in a lot of different ways that are suitable for you. And yeah, feel free to keep continuing dropping questions in the chat box.
Yeah, we do have one question, like what's your contact information? And just like Jen says in the chat, if you want to connect with us or any of the other mentors, just reach out to Monica with the email in the chat box and I'll get that to you. Well, Tiffany, I'll ask you one of these questions. What are some major differences between high school and college?
Okay, I would say the first major difference would definitely be rigor when it comes to your classes and the class work. With high school, you spend majority of your day in a classroom. So a lot of you start at maybe 8 in the morning, then finish maybe 2 or 3 in the afternoon with a full day of classes, whereas in your undergrad experience, you'll maybe have 3 to 4 classes a day where there'll be maybe an hour and a half each, couple of labs throughout the week. But a lot of the learning, a lot of the hands-on will be outside of class. So I would say a big difference is, I guess, maybe the learning aspect of it. You'll have some teachers that maybe do a flipped classroom type of experience where they have you prepare, maybe read a textbook or watch like a lesson video before you get to class. And then the class time is basically the only time you have to practice what you learned outside of class. So I would say that's a pretty big difference. But then also just flexibility. So maybe with your high school experience, you have your set schedule of going to school, maybe practice afterwards or attending some sort of club. Here, in your undergrad experience, you'll have classes that are more spread out. So a lot of the time you'll be working on time management. That's something that not everyone's perfect at, but definitely something that is a big difference between like your high school experience and college. I don't know if you want to add to that, Annie.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with everything. It's a lot more responsibility to keep track of everything. It's also a lot more freedom, which is really great too. And I think that everyone, no matter how much you know or don't know, is gonna have a somewhat semi-rough transition into college. But I can tell you that literally every single person I know has made it through their freshman year, and survived it all and figured themselves out. We have one question saying, what does a typical first day at a university look like? First day, so typically when you start university, in my experience and in my friends' experiences, your school will have like some sort of orientation situation. It's either going to be a weekend or some schools even do a week. And those is like a very nice, like kind of get to know the other freshmen or just make some, first friends and stuff. But in actual classes, I think you'll end up probably reaching out to some upperclassmen to help you out. You're gonna have, Google Maps or Apple Maps or something on your phone open to bring you to classes and stuff. You have your schedule like pulled down, trying to figure out like which building to go to, which classroom to go to. It's gonna be a little bit of a wreck. And then, you might get lunch, dinner with some classmates that you just met. You might, I don't know, try out a club, or maybe there's a club fair or something like that. That's kind of, I guess, what the first day looks like. That's not every day, of course, but the first day is always interesting. I think everyone's experiences are a little different. We have, can you really choose your own courses and how much time do you spend for each? So this is really going to depend on what college you go to. For example, if you go to a tech specific school, like let's say Georgia Tech or something like that, you might not have that many humanities related university requirements. I go to Notre Dame. I'm not sure how Bucknell does it, but at Notre Dame, we do have a bunch of university requirements that we have to fulfill, like taking certain humanities classes, philosophy classes, etc. And so in that sense, you can still pick which class you're taking, but it has to fulfill like a certain section, like art or like history, things like that. And in terms of engineering, you can pick the electives that you take with respect to your own field later on, but your first 1 to 2 years is going to be pretty set in stone on what you're taking. Like, again, depending on the school you go to, for us, College of Engineering, you have to take chemistry, you have to take physics 1, physics 2, you have to take calc 1, calc 2, calc 3, things like that. So in that sense, you can't pick because those are just like hard requirements that you need to fulfill your major. But once you kind of finish those hard requirements, then you have to fulfill electives. And those electives, then you get to kind of choose like what you're interested in, what you want to take and stuff, how you want to concentrate your time, and how much time do you spend for each. I mean, it again depends on the person, right? If you're better at like reading, writing, you might spend less time on your humanities classes and more time figuring out a problem set. If you're vice versa, then the time will be vice versa. Tiffany, what about you? Do you have anything to add?
No, I was pretty much, it's sort of like a hard question because of course it's different for every university, but just sort of validating everything you said, Annie, that was a really good way to put it. With choosing your own courses, I actually really like the way that it's here over at Bucknell. We do have core requirements, but they're pretty much flexible. But again, it'll just depend on the program. But something I will recommend is just, if you're looking at a certain school or a couple of schools, just look up, College of Engineering for whatever school. And most of them will have a website where it lays out all of the major requirements for that major. So if you're really interested in looking into specifics, I would definitely recommend just directly looking it up because a lot of schools will have a website for that. So the next question, how closely related is chemical engineering to biochemical? Is chemical engineering as a major a good choice for the pre-med track? Yeah, I would say there's a lot of overlap for both majors. There are a couple of students in my class who are actually on the pre-med track, so it definitely is a good way to go, especially if you're looking into pharmaceuticals or anything application-based. I would say another major sort of in that realm would be biomed. A lot of chemies and biomed engineers end up going into maybe the same field or similar fields. If you're looking for specific differences, look up actual programs so you can see classes that a chemical engineer might be taking versus biochem or biomed. But all three would be a great option if you're planning to go to med school afterwards.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I know plenty of people who have the desire to maybe go pre-med or at least want to work in the medical field. And so they pick chemical engineering, biochemical, biomedical engineering. Some of them actually end up deciding that they don't want to do pre-med and they would rather just work in the medical industry, but without becoming a doctor, right? That's 100% a viable choice. So, if you have the intention of becoming a doctor, I'm not too sure like doing engineering is going to be the best for you just because based on my research as a previous pre-med student, you have to have a pretty good GPA and stuff, and engineering is going to be really difficult to balance out with your other pre-med requirements. So if you really, really want to be a doctor, I actually wouldn't recommend trying to do engineering. But if you want to like at least maybe have pre-med in the your realm of possibilities, but you want to do like work with devices and do research and things like that, then I would say like chemical or biomedical engineering is a good path. We have for students working, how are you able to juggle your job / interning with school life? So yeah, Tiffany and I, we both work at Engineering Tomorrow as one of our jobs. I have like 2 or 3 jobs elsewhere on campus as well. It's not, I guess, the easiest, but I actually personally, I think I'm more productive and I work better when my schedule is packed. When I don't really have a break, because otherwise, and if you have like 5 hours of break, you're not really productive, right? Because you think you have so much time. I recommend, and I'm sure everyone will figure this out when you guys go to college, using a calendar. I think every single person I know at college uses a calendar, either a Google Calendar, a handwritten planner or whatever, or like Apple Calendar, whatever it may be. Just like planning out each thing you have to do, or setting times aside, using to-do lists, some sort of organizational thingy is gonna like help you figure out like when you need to do what, and because you're not gonna remember everything you have to do, at least for me. And in terms of school life as well, I mean, it just depends on like what you prioritize, right? Like you want a healthy balance, but of course some people are going to prioritize college memories over like career applications, things like that. Some people are going to do the opposite. And so you're going to learn about yourself a lot in college and figure out what works for you, what doesn't, and that's going to really drive like how you're planning everything out. I personally like a really good balance instead of like one outweighing the other. So I kind of plan accordingly to that, but everyone's schedule is going to look differently based on what you want to prioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tiffany, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would also say I also have 3 jobs here on campus. So a lot of what Annie was saying, especially when it comes to organization and your time management, that comes into play. And so when you're trying to juggle, your jobs, your extracurriculars, and your academics, definitely prioritize academics. You don't want to get too involved where, you're doing too much just to maybe put on your resume and then you're falling behind in classes. So I would say, obviously, learning yourself and what you're actually capable of doing is a really big part in that. And then, yeah, just staying organized, but also seeking help. You might have some friends or some classmates, maybe some professors that have advice on how to balance what with, other things. So always feel free to reach out to other people who might be in the same boat as you as well, when it comes to juggling all of that.
Yeah, and the next question was about Notre Dame. I answered it in the chat. If you guys have any follow-up questions about that, you can just put in the chat and I can answer there. But the question saying, have you accumulated debt? What is your plan for paying it off? So I was lucky enough to come to Notre Dame on a full tuition scholarship. So I do pay room and board. But my parents are fortunate enough to be able to pay that for me. So I don't have any loans or debt to pay off. In terms of financial situation when applying to colleges, I kind of said this in my answer about Notre Dame, but the main reason why I chose Notre Dame is because I was awarded this scholarship. I think that it's really important, especially for people who can't, pay full tuition and full room and board and stuff, to really think about like how debt is going to affect you. If you have to take out loans and debt and stuff and have debt, it is a long and gruesome process. And I highly would recommend you, like, I don't think it would be worth it to go to, let's say, Harvard for like, I don't know, history or something, when it's very hard to get a job in history. It's going to be pretty gruesome to pay off like a huge amount of debt if you can't pay for Harvard, right? Like it'd be more worth it to you to go to a state school or somewhere that's giving you money or more financial aid, more scholarship and study history there, because in the end, if you've just do some research about how student loans are done, the interest racks up really, really, really quick, and people like don't pay off until 60, 70, if that, and then if something happens, then it gets thrown onto like your parents or your spouse or whatever it may be. So I highly recommend trying to choose the most financially beneficial route. That being said, there are many schools that offer really, really good financial aid. And when you guys do the FAFSA, you're going to get like your EFC, which is expected family contribution, I think. And that's going to kind of give you an idea of like what your parents or you are going to have to pay. I also would say the more elite the school, typically the better financial aid they give. And so that is a really big thing to consider if you are low income and you're trying to not have debt. You can work really hard and get into a really good school. They're probably going to give you more financial aid than like a middle tier school or a lower tier school. State school is also obviously a really good option too, and those would be a lot cheaper, and they also give financial aid. If you're a really excellent candidate for a school, they often will also just give you like extra merit aid. Like, why not? I know somebody who applied to, I'm from New Orleans, who applied to like LSU, and he was really outstanding. So LSU was like offering to give him $25,000 a year extra on top of going to LSU for free, you know? So like there are a lot of opportunities if you work really hard at something and excel in it, but at the same time, just think about the most financially beneficial path for you. And I really, really recommend not taking out many loans. Tiffany, what about you?
Okay. No, that was a good answer. I would also say, because I work in admissions here at Bucknell, when it comes to applying for those scholarships, a lot of schools do it differently. So if there's one thing I want to add to this is keep in mind of deadlines. Because I know here at Bucknell, if you're looking to be considered for a merit scholarship, you do need to apply for that as you're applying to the school, whereas some schools might have a later deadline, maybe an earlier deadline. So instead of getting trapped, like Annie said, you know, in taking out loans or whatever you might need to support your education, you should definitely keep in mind of deadlines for whatever applications you need to submit. So definitely keep in mind of that. The next question here, how important is school life when picking colleges, and how do you regulate your academics to make time for social life if you want to earn your bachelor's in 3 years instead of 4? Along with co and extracurriculars, jobs, etc. School life, obviously definitely important when it comes to picking your school. It's going to be the next 4 years of your life. So I would say maybe consider that a big chunk of it. How do you regulate your academics? So again, it's going to depend on your major. If you're planning on studying engineering, a lot of your time will be put towards academics. So that's just a decision that you have to make on your own. A lot of schools, engineering schools, will have like a engineering 100 type of course where you're learning about the different disciplines within engineering. I know here at Bucknell, basically you have the first full semester. If you come in undecided engineering, you have engineering 100 to sort of explore different disciplines. And if you find out it's not for you, then you can switch into another school. So maybe arts and sciences or management. Then I'll pass it on to you, Annie, after that. But I would say when it comes to balancing your academics with social life, obviously, like, I mean, people go to college for different reasons, but if you're going to study engineering, might as well put your all into it. And then if you plan on doing your bachelor's in 3 years instead of 4, for engineers, that would be pretty hard because I know some schools either do 4 or 5. So if you're planning on graduating in 3 years with a bachelor's in engineering, you're going to need to come in with a lot of AP credits, and not just any AP credits. You're going to have to check whatever programs you're doing and what APs they accept, because not all schools accept APs. And even if you do come in with credits, they don't directly translate as college credits. Because I know here at Bucknell, I took AP physics in high school. A lot of my classmates took AP physics in high school, but it's still a requirement that you need to take here. That might be the same at other schools. So same thing with math. Majority of the time, the credits that a lot of engineers take that do cancel out credits would be like your humanities or your social sciences. But majority of the time, you'll still have to take STEM classes, even if you do come in. So I'm not sure if 3 years is as reasonable. You don't want to make yourself too overburdened with, you know, overloading on STEM classes just so that you get it done in 3 years. So I would say it definitely depends on, you know, the person, but when you're balancing academics and social life, definitely look into what other students are doing at the school. So when you look at the engineering program, are the students just going to class, doing the homework, and then eat, sleep, and repeat? Or are the engineering students, you know, getting involved in different things, but not overburdening themselves so that, you know, you're so, burnt out by like the middle of the semester? You don't want to be that person either. So I would say when it comes to it, it depends on your own, I guess your own goals, but instead of like rushing it, I would say just take your time to like learn yourself, and then also, you know, the classes that you're taking.
I'm going to hop in because we have reached our end time for the Q&A. I want to say thank you to Tiffany and Annie for leading such a great session. Thank you for all the questions. These were great questions. And I see there's another question in the chat. I just want to invite you all that we are going to actually open up the breakout rooms. I know Tiffany is going to stay, and I know Annie is going to stay, and we have Emily who's joining. There's actually going to be one breakout room this time. So if you have a question that didn't get answered, please hop into a breakout room and our mentors will be happy to have you. Bryce is here as well. Thank you, Bryce. So I'm going to welcome back, everybody. It is time to start our wrap up for our drug delivery day. I hope that you've had some fun. I heard there was a little bit of some troubles with design. So I hope that nobody's shy and they can come and share with Eric Eric is here to lead the wrap-up session. But again, these sessions work really well when you are engaged and participate. So please do not be shy. During this time, we actually encourage you to unmute and come up to your cameras to show us what's going on in your classroom. But I'm going to stop speaking and pass it off to Dr. Eric Einset.
Thanks, Monica. And again, thanks to Annie, Tiffany, Bryce, and Emily. I hope you guys enjoyed getting a view of what engineering school is like from somebody closer to your age instead of me, because I'm sure it's very different now. But they're very helpful in terms of giving you a feel for what it's like there. So I hope you got some enjoyment out of the lab. And what we find is that these labs, they're the best. The labs are the best when you can actually do something with your hands, when it's hands-on, when you're building and when you're optimizing and trying to figure stuff out. So I'll just kind of throw it out. How did it go? What were some of the challenges? Are there any things that you found were really challenging, difficult, things that you didn't expect that you'd see? You could put them in chat if you want, or if you want to come on up and speak, that's fine too.
Let's see if we have somebody who's going
Nothing
to
yet.
be brave.
I know there's a lot of people online, but don't worry, it's really just you and me that's talking. So think of it that way.
Anybody
There's
want
a
to
lot
share?
of chemistry. There's a lot of chem. Did you get any? Do we have any?
No, not yet. I see some movement, but I don't see anybody unmuting or coming up to the camera yet. And you can raise your hand if you want to unmute and shout out to our presenter.
Burke Catholic, you have to unmute.
Yeah, I think that. Thanks, Constance.
All right, hi. This for Duval High School. So this is our outcome right here, pretty much.
Oh, excellent.
So we got a blue one. This was like out of all of them, this is like the fastest one.
Yeah.
And what's called the yellow one took like a little bit of time, and the slowest one was the red one. So right now I don't know if you see me, but I'm representing for Duval High School. So yeah, this is our project.
Oh, great. How did you package the red one? Did you have many wraps? What did you wrap it with?
So basically, what we did, the napkins that you gave us, like we wrap it into kisses. You know, have the Kisses candies, right? So we put tape on there, right? Right. So we put tape on there. We just drop it at the same time. Which one it was, so we can see which one is like more. Okay. And, so we noticed that the blue ones went more than the yellow one, so it was really fast. Okay. And the red one took like about it took like a slow time reaction, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. Took longer. Okay. Cool. No, thanks for showing that.
I'm representing Duval High School. So, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Duval High School.
Eric, I'm not sure if you see in the chat, but Burke Catholic has something in the chat.
Right. The wrapping, it was really, really hard because we did it and then was too long. And then we wrapped it less and it was still really long. Yeah. So that's what can happen when you experiment with these wraps, I guess you could call them. You got to start somewhere. And like if you wrap it too many times, you'll find you'll be sitting for a long time before you get any kind of dissolving. But that's kind of how it works. You gotta try things out. Maybe bookend it. Try it with one wrap and try it with 10 wraps and see. Do you think you should be closer to the 1 side or the 10 side? But that's part of the engineering process.
East Harlem. I see East Harlem. Let me pin you for everybody. Hold on. There we go, East Harlem. Go ahead, show us what you got.
Show us what you got.
Okay, so we had 16 pills and we had 16 trials as well. So we only had one successful one. It was a purple pill, and we used pen paper. The first layer was tissue paper, and the second layer was tape. And my friend Maya made it last 5 seconds. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we've done. And
great.
Yeah.
So what color? You had 16 pills. So you did you do eight trials with the tube, or did you do one at a time just so you could kind of time it?
Yeah, like our first few were like one at a time, and then like our last trials were like 2.
No, that's fine. That's actually a good idea because that way you kind of design it one piece at a time. And then once you have the 2 that are the right times, you just put them together and there's your pill. So nice, good job.
Okay.
I'm glad, by the way, I'm glad you had that many trials. You had a chance to do that many trials.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Eric, I don't know if you see, but we have a lot of comments in the chat now. Can you
okay,
see them?
I'll try. Let's see. Where should I start? Let's see. I got
Wall Trip was first up.
Thank you for inviting. The effect of tape. So we all had issues with the tape interfering with the release. Yeah. So I guess Scotch tape is not very, it doesn't dissolve. So that's an interesting element. I've never come across that, but you're right. If you wrap it too much in tape, now the tape is part of your wrap, is part of your layers, and that's not so great. So yeah, you got to find a way that the tape doesn't have the impact on your results. That's an interesting one.
Before we get to the rest of the questions in chat, I think we have somebody wants to speak at Hayes. Cardinal Hayes, come on up.
This is my name is David Galindo. I'm from Southern Stars Academy. So basically, I made like these 2 cups, right? And then 1 cup ahead. So basically, the third one, it was let me say it. It turned out really bad because one of my partners just made it tight. And it took like an hour and 46 minutes for the 3rd tablet to like dissolve and everything.
Okay.
Yeah. If I tighten it, you tighten the tablet slowly or something that
There we go. Now we can see y'all. Okay. Good. So it took you said it took over an hour to dissolve them all?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So obviously that's too far on the far end, right? So you're going to have to figure out, was that with the polyvinyl alcohol or was that some other wrap that you used?
I think it's about the wrapping. And also we did it with water. And then it turned out, so that's the reason why it turned out slow, right?
Right. Okay, good. So did you guys enjoy it though? Was an interesting lab?
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
All right, good. Excellent. Well, thanks a lot.
All right, we have some hand raised. We have Brooklyn Tech that wants to hop in. So Brooklyn Tech, if you can unmute. Let's see if I can.
Okay.
I guess
Oh, sorry.
Oh, can't hear you. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. There we go.
Yeah, so, I'll go into mine first. Like me and my partner, we did like multiple, and this is one of our trials. So I guess like one thing that we're kind of struggling with, even though we got them to release, but usually the case was one bath bomb release like as soon as we drop it in, and then the other one release like within like 5 a pretty long, surprisingly long amount of time.
Right.
So we're gonna perfect that a little bit, you know. So I think in this case, it might have, both of them took a little bit longer. Like, I'm not sure. It was, I think it was blue and green. So the blue one dissolved like pretty much as soon as we put it in. The other green bath bomb, or the other green like pill, it took a little bit longer. So
okay.
Obviously, it was dissolved, and this is what we got.
So clearly, yeah. So it got pretty dark when you put all the colors together. No, good. So you had different coatings though, right? Did you try different designs? Okay.
In this case, it was one pill we used. I think it was two of the vinyl alcohol.
Yeah.
Layers of that paper, and then the other one we used. It was tissue, and then one layer of tissue paper, and then one layer of vinyl alcohol.
Right. Okay.
We used tape to like put them together.
Good. Very good. Yeah. Now that's the key, is to try different things, to try different combinations, and it's I mean, how did you like using that polyvinyl? It's kind of cool, that PVA material, isn't it? it doesn't instantly dissolve, but it just eventually gets all like slimy, doesn't it? But it eventually falls apart. So, okay,
great job,
well
Brooklyn
done.
Tech. Hayes
Thanks
is now ready. I'm sorry, Hayes. Are you ready to talk now? I'm sorry, I had you pinned and you weren't speaking. Here we go. Hayes, you ready? You got to unmute. There we go. Now we can hear you. Hi, Cardinal Hayes.
Hi.
All right, who's presenting?
I guess you win.
So talk to us. Tell us.
Tell us what did you do? What were the challenges?
All right, so one challenge was the wrapping. I feel like a lot of guys thought it was pretty complicated. Personally, me, I just want to do a simple wrapping to the point like where the tablet was not too exposed to the water. But clearly, I failed on one of them because I dropped it in the water and the tablet started dispersing immediately in 1 second. So that
it needs to be sealed. It needs to be sealed up, doesn't it? So that the wrap is limiting.
But I'm actually proud of this one because I was able to do two at the same time. And the red tablet dispersed in about like 10 seconds, while the other tablet dispersed about like 17 seconds. So I was able to seal it properly. And for this one, I used different coatings. So I used one water sulfide, and the other one I used a toilet paper towel. And it actually took a while. It took like almost 5 minutes for it to fully disperse. But yeah, so.
Right. So the paper towel took a long time to dissolve. It just
took a while.
Yeah, it took a while. Okay. Very good. Very good.
Thank
you. So you can see how you can design different combinations, but well done. Well done, guys.
Next up, we have Largo High School who has their hand raised. Largo, are you ready to hop in?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, so we just wanted to say one thing. So for what we wrapped around, we use this water soluble paper, right? And then we use tissue, and then we use tape to wrap around it. But the tape added an extra layer over everything. Right. So like with we used a yellow pill, and that one dissolved the fastest. I mean, the slowest over everything else. But the one wrapped with napkin, it dissolved the very fastest. So yeah.
Right.
And there was a lot of fast attempts too.
Yep.
These were ones that took like a very long time to like dissolve in the water. So we realized that like when you wrap it like too much, then the like pill will not dissolve within your body, and you won't get the
maximum effect.
Exactly. Right. You won't get the effect of the pill.
So, and also, did those ever dissolve? Because it looks like are there still pills in those or no?
Yeah, no, they like kind of like got through, but like it took like a long time for them to do so. Right. So the desired effect wouldn't be what you expect if you were to take it into your body.
Very good. Excellent.
Also, we try to with we try to like many different like paper. We try to with paper clips and tape, and we found out that like the tape really affected how much it weighed, and it sank into the water a lot faster with paper clips instead of the tape. So we ended up going with the paper clips instead of tape. So,
also noted with the paper clips, when you put them like down the side, it wouldn't allow like any of the color to like come out of it. So it was really secured down to like keeping it into the paper.
It really sealed it. It sealed it really well. Yeah. No, that's a good point, because I don't know if anybody else noticed that sometimes these things will float on top of the water, and it's not really a good test because you want it to be immersed in the water. So no, that's interesting.
That's what happened every time we use the paper clip. That's what I noticed.
Yeah. No, that's good. No, well done. Yeah, you guys got some good observations there.
Great job, Largo. We have Academy of Mount St. Ursula next. Let me see if I can find them to pin them. Here we go. Academy of Mount St. Ursula, are you ready? Your camera's not on, so I'm actually going to go to Barnabas because they look ready. Barnabas, are you ready? Yes? All right. How about you unmute and I'm going to pin you. Barnabas, unmute. There you go. Now we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm blind. Hi, I'm Maya, and I go to St. Barnabas.
Hi, I'm Chloe from St. Barnabas.
And so what we did for the 5 seconds, I wrapped it in tissue paper and then I put a little bit of tape for it to dissolve faster since the tissue paper is thinner. So I wrapped it up and let it dissolve.
Yep.
For the 15-second release, I put the alcohol paper because I thought like it shouldn't,
Takes longer to dissolve, right? Yeah.
Right. It will take a little while.
Yep.
And for the 30-second, we put paper towel, the alcohol paper, and tape so it could dissolve even more.
And that's what you found. Those designs worked at 5, 15, and 30, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then when I noticed when we were doing the releases, I noticed that it took a while for it to fully dissolve, and like even sometimes the pill itself wouldn't dissolve all the way. Like it would stay like still in a circular shape even.
Right. Yeah, even once it hits the water, it doesn't like instantly dissolve. It takes a while for it to go. So no, good job. Those were good.
Yeah,
good.
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay, hi, I'm Brianna. I'm from St. Barnabas. For our we use polymer paper, 2 pieces of paper towel, and tape, and some tape. And it released a little bit, but it hasn't moved since, and it's floating.
Show the picture.
Okay.
Let them know how long you have them there floating.
For about 45 minutes.
45. Okay.
That's the average.
I lost you there for a second, but okay. No, good job. Did you enjoy this? Did you enjoy the lab? Was it fun to kind of try to do some measurements, some stuff?
Yeah, definitely. It was fun.
Good. I guess you guys you always say that. Nobody ever says it's bad. So, but thanks for saying that.
It was mid. Yeah.
All right. Well done. Who do we have here now?
Academy Mount St. Ursula, you're up.
AMSU. Yeah. Well.
We can't hear you. We see you, but we can't hear you now. Oh no. Want to try testing now? I see you're unmuted. Can we hear you? Nope.
No.
All right. We'll come back to you because I see the Ursuline School is ready to go. So we'll come back to you. Let us know when you're ready. All right. Let me find Ursuline. And the Ursuline School, you guys are up.
Hello.
Hi.
We'd like to share, we have a group here who tested a couple of tablets. So what did you find?
So we found that if you wrap it in the napkin, and initially we put the blue tablet wrapped in the water-soluble paper, and it dissolved really quick. But then we put the orange tablet in the napkin and taped that, but it didn't dissolve. So
right.
Really
what kind of napkin was it that you used? Was it just like a regular napkin that you have when you get takeout food?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Very good.
All right, thank you, Ursuline. We have All Hallows is next. I'm waiting to hear when Academy Mount St. Ursula is ready, but All Hallows, your camera's not on. Oh, there they go. All right.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello. One problem that we actually ran into was the actual fill. It would either dissolve too quickly or not as fast to meet the actual requirements of like 5 seconds. So actually what we did is actually crush one of the pills into a powder. And that actually alongside with like the napkin that was more soluble, that actually administered the color effect in 5 seconds, which made our time.
Wow, that's a great creative solution. Actually, that's very interesting. Yeah, it makes sense. I've never come across that before. That's really good. That's good. So that was almost another variable that you could modify in your design to try to hit the targets. No, it's good job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. And I see we have St. Joseph Regional. Are you guys ready to share with us?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right. Here we go.
So in my class, we noticed when we took different types, the paper towels and the water soluble paper, we noticed that the other paper was a lot more stronger, and it took a lot longer than the paper towels for it to, you know, come through and stuff. Like one pill took like 25 minutes, and the other one sometimes for one of them, the paper towel just like went through immediately. So you know, also the tape played a big part. If you put a little too much tape, you know, it wouldn't come through properly. And if you didn't put like, you know, the right materials, or you didn't put the right amount of paper towels or water paper, you know, it wouldn't work.
Yep. No, that's actually that you've come across a really kind of an important point, which is very common in engineering. These details matter when you're making a design, so that if you are going to use your design, you know, in production, where you're going to make millions and millions of these pills, you have to have real control, quality control on the materials and how they're actually assembled. So that's a really good point. So good. No, thanks for sharing that. That was a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, St. Joseph Regional. And I'm going to go back. Academy Mount St. Ursula. Are you guys ready yet? Have we figured out the audio?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So, we threw away our results, but we took pictures and we have a document on it. So first we did was that we took 2 pills. We took a purple one and we took a green one. And so we wrapped the purple one into the stabilized paper. And then after that, we wrapped into to a tissue paper. And then we clipped the 2 sides of it together so it could be one. Then we dipped into the water, and the purple one released first in 9 seconds, and the green one released in 15 seconds. And they were fully diffused in a minute, basically.
Okay, excellent. So you managed to get a separation between the first and the second, which is the key.
Yeah, and then we did a second test.
Yep.
With a second purple one and with a blue one. But this time the second purple one, it released in 5 seconds, faster than the first one. And then the blue one, for the first time, it was 6.5 seconds.
Okay.
And then combined together, it was 57 seconds, close to a minute.
Okay.
And
no, you were right in the range. No, very good. No, well done.
And then we have pictures if you want to see on the
Yeah, show us one, or can you show us one or two?
So this
is, we can see it.
Yeah.
That was a purple, pink, kind of. And this is when the greens.
Oops.
Sorry. And this is the green starting to form.
Okay. Okay.
And then this is them starting to combine.
Right. Okay.
And then fully combine.
Perfect. Okay. Great. No, thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing that.
All right. And I see EHCP, which I think is East Harlem, but I'm not sure. You guys ready? Your hand is up. Yes, no? You guys ready? If not, I'll go to Burke. Oh, they're ready. All right.
Maybe.
We can hear you now. Yes.
Oh. Can't really hear.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone?
Anyways, we got 30 seconds on our first solution where we used polymer and just rope with a paper. And we did 2 layers. We got 30 seconds. And we did the second solution, which was 1 tablet, polymer and only rope. And we did 2 layers and we got 5 seconds.
Okay.
So,
2 layers was 5 seconds. That's fast. Was it well sealed up?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
At first we used green and orange. The first solution was green and the second solution was orange.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. The green bursted out on 30 seconds and the second solution was orange and bursted out in 5 seconds.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great.
Thank you so
that's good.
much.
Thank you.
All right, we have, I think Burke is ready now. Burke, are you ready?
More ready.
All right.
Hi. So I asked a question before, like about the wrapping. But I think an important thing to note is like what it goes in, and it goes in the water, right? So we were my man Luca, who was like, he was our water guy, really. And what he did, so Luca's back there.
Okay. Hi, Luca.
And so I'm really nervous. And
that's okay. No, wait.
So Luca, we did cold water, and then we like it wasn't working. You know, like we had to cut it early because it was taking forever. So then we made it hot, and we did a 30-second one, and it was like 17 seconds. So like the heat was like definitely a factor.
You discovered another factor, another really important factor. The temperature of the water has a big impact, at least on the polyvinyl, the PVA sheet. I think it dissolves a lot faster in hot water than in cold water. So I guess if you think about it, if you're designing something for the human body, you got to take into account what is the temperature that this pill is going to, see, and it'll be pretty much always the same for human beings because usually our temperature of our bodies are the same. But that's a great observation and a great point. That's just another factor that you have to take into account in your experiments.
Really think so?
Yeah. Well done.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, good job.
Great job, Burke. And now we have St. Peter's Boys High School from Staten Island. You guys ready?
We
can hear you now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
All right. So we took some like tablets and put them in the water, and we did a big experiment on it.
That's great.
This guy married.
So basically, what we had these tiny strips that were pretty thin strips. Yeah. We had paper towels and toilet napkins. But what we did find was when you did use a paper towel, not only would the pill float on the water, it wouldn't exactly dissolve all the way with the tape as an added weight. Yep. So we wound up sticking with the toilet paper and the thin strips, and they dissolved pretty quickly for the most part and at a steady pace. For the yellow one, where we just used a thin strip, it kind of went out in about 15 to 20 seconds. And the red with added toilet paper was around 30 to 45 seconds. And for this black one right here, there were 2 pills in it. Okay. And with the tape and the 2 pills wrapped up, it dissolved in around 3 minutes. But what I did find was that kind of like the wrapping was similar to like a gel, like a liquid gel, like you find in like Advils and stuff. Yeah. I'm guessing that's what it was supposed to be, kind of like a substitute.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was really just a material that was cheap, that was interesting, that that dissolves slowly, that dissolves in water. So that's why we used it. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't really specifically because it was like a Tylenol gel, but it does become jelly, right? It kind of turns to jelly. Yeah.
It does. Yeah, and yeah, that was it. Yeah.
No, good. No, those are good observations. Thanks a lot. Very well done.
I don't know if you've noticed the time. It is
1 minute. I don't know if you noticed the time, Monica. It's perfect. No, this was great. I mean, it's really great to see this much engagement, and I'm really, I'd much rather be hearing about how you guys did, which is what we did, than talking and showing you a bunch of slides. So I hope, as I said, I hope you really enjoyed the lab. If there are follow-up questions, we can probably answer. We can follow up just by some emails if you want. We had some pre-day questions that were excellent questions. But I have to say that some of the questions were really directed more towards a medical doctor, and I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just an engineer. But anyway, you guys have done a really nice job as far as your questions and also your results. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I think we probably want to hand it over to Megan. Are you gonna introduce John? Is that
yes,
where we
I
are?
am.
John,
yes, I am. Thank you so much, Eric.
Right. Good job, everybody.
Yes, great job. I was really so impressed with all of the students who got up and shared their work. I agree with the student from Burke Catholic. It can be a little intimidating to get in front of thousands of people, and that's what you did today and shared your work. So congratulations to everyone who participated today, and thanks so much to Eric. So again, Megan Barrett, I'm the Director of Operations here at Engineering Tomorrow. And it's my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, John Sexton. John is a senior studying electrical engineering at the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. Now, it's interesting how John came to Engineering Tomorrow. On a Saturday evening back in October 2021, I was watching a Notre Dame versus University of Southern California football game on NBC. These games are viewed by millions of people across the country. During halftime of the game, a video produced by Notre Dame aired that was titled "Fighting for the Dignity of Independence," that starred John Sexton and highlighted his remarkable work to improve his father's life and others challenged with ALS. I'm sure many of you have seen this video by now, and John will probably replay it during his presentation. After that video segment aired, John's phone did not stop ringing with people wanting to support his company and partner with him. We are grateful that John accepted Engineering Tomorrow's call. This is John's second year serving as a keynote speaker for a national lab event, and I'm very excited to share that John and Eric Einset are working to develop an eye tracking lab for Engineering Tomorrow students. I'm sure that after meeting John this afternoon, you're going to want to participate in that new lab. So please stay tuned. Without further delay, I'll pass it over to John to share his inspiring journey in the field of engineering.
Thanks,
Are you
Megan.
ready, John? Hi, John.
Yeah, I'm all good. Hey, everybody. I'm going to just echo, I've done this once before. I've given talks, pitches, all that stuff. I still get super nervous talking to people too. So we're all the same. Am I sharing my PowerPoint, or are y'all sharing?
I believe you're sharing. Does John have hosting rights?
You should be able to share now, John.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Let me just get this set up here real quick. Having a couple of difficulties here. Let's see. There we go. All right. So as Megan mentioned, my name is John Sexton. I'm a senior electrical engineering major here at Notre Dame. And we were featured with a startup that I've created called LifeDrive that provides assistive power wheelchair control technology to people that are in wheelchairs that can't drive their chair with a standard joystick. We were featured in one of the What Would You Fight For commercials, like Megan mentioned. So gonna replay it here real quick to kick off the presentation, and then we'll get into it. I'll just restart at the beginning. There we go.
I don't think we can hear the audio.
Oh, let me try this one more time. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
My dad was diagnosed with ALS in 2014. That diagnosis was miserable. I mean, I was 13 years old. I don't wish that on anybody. It was really difficult to see how his body was deteriorating, but you could tell that his mind was just going at a million miles an hour of how to fix the problem.
I had an idea that could help people in my situation, but I needed my son's help to make it a reality.
Notre Dame student John Sexton is working with his father on assistive technology called iDriving, giving individuals who use a wheelchair the ability to control multiple functions with their eyes, granting them autonomy and caregivers relief.
iDriving has given Sean a freedom that was gradually being taken away from him as this disease progressed. It improves his quality of life. It improves his smile.
Our core mission is to improve quality of life and maintain independence, but we needed to figure out how to share iDriving with the world.
The Grand Challenge Scholars Program was developed at the University of Notre Dame to help students actualize their design and research interests into something that helps solve the greatest problems in our world.
Grand Challenges has been incredible. It's connected me to a peer team, faculty mentor, and business planning. The thing about the Notre Dame community, they don't want this to fail, not when so much good can come of this.
Working on this project has brought us together in a way that has given us life and has given us hope.
I'm so proud of my son, using his education to help others.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting for the dignity of independence. We are the Fighting Irish.
There we go. All right, so there's a little bit of background on me, and here's some more. So, like I said, I am a senior electrical engineering major at Notre Dame. I'm originally from Atlanta. I'm also in the band at Notre Dame, so play a bunch of different instruments. I've played piano since I was little, but I learned tuba so I could be in the marching band here, play electric bass. I was actually the drum major this past year, so that picture in the bottom left is from this year. Getting to lead the band out on the field was really cool. And then, it was called iDriving in the video. We've changed the name and rebranded, but it's called LifeDrive now. And so we've been working on the technology for the past 7 years. So when I was a sophomore in high school, we were developing this for my dad. And then we started working on the company side of it about 2.5 years ago. We started it sort of towards the beginning of my sophomore year here at Notre Dame. And so why am I here to talk to you today? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're here for engineering. We're here to build things. We're here to create things. We're here to innovate things. We're here to serve other people. So whether you built Legos when you were really little, whether you like coding and have experience doing that in your high schools, I know I had a lot of that, which was a really great background and foundation for what I did here at Notre Dame. Whether you ever see those like snap circuit things you played with when you're like 10, they were a lot of fun. Maybe I was just a nerd as a kid, but I really enjoyed doing those. Some of you probably have FIRST Robotics teams at your schools. And then also this is a picture from last year, actually. There was an electric vehicles lab that I spoke for last year. So, Engineering Tomorrow projects as well are something that are really cool things to work on. And basically the point of this is just, there's so many different things that you can do and so many reasons for what you do that really can motivate why engineering might be something that you want to consider moving forward and work on and solve those types of problems. So speaking of reasons, figuring out why you're doing what you're doing, whether that's in engineering or whether that's in any profession that you go to, is really important. What are your motivations? What are your family reasons? What are your friend reasons? What are some societal problems that you want to solve? What are some things from your own personal experience that you want to tackle? Thinking about your motivations for why you're doing engineering can help make the work so much more fulfilling and continue to motivate you, especially when it gets really tough to stay motivated, or you find challenges that are really hard to solve and you might be down and out for a little bit. That motivation, that core reason why, is what will keep you going through and help you decide ultimately what you want to do with your life. And so in the essence of practicing what we preach here, let's everybody take 2-3 minutes. We took a little bit more last year actually, but we'll see what ends up happening, see if we need more time. It is 1:10 right now, so let's say 1:13, 1:14. Let's come back on and keep going with the presentation, but for the next like 3-4 minutes, think about what problems are you interested in solving in the world? What types of projects do you want to work on? Who do you want to help? What type of impact would you have? Is engineering factor into that impact? And then like, why do you personally want to solve the problems or go into this type of work that you're interested in? Like, what's your personal motivations? And then what are the things that you can do to move forward and exploring more, learning further, kind of getting more of a background for what you think you might want to do. So again, let's do like 113, 114, come back, maybe even 115, and just, you know, write these down, think about them, and then we'll get back to the presentation. All right, so finish up any final thoughts that you have, and we'll keep moving. One thing too with this, you know, it's very cool and very unique that everybody will have their own sort of motivations or their own interests, right? But one thing that can really help you discern, help you figure out what you want to do moving forward, whether that's now in high school, whether, you know, if you go to college, you know, once you get to college, talking to people that have similar interests, asking people that have experience in what you're doing or what you're interested in, and kind of just picking their brain about different things, like talking to people about this and sharing your story or sharing your interests and figuring out how you can continue to be involved in whatever those interests are is a huge part of your development. And you'll find that there are a lot more people in this world that are going to want to help you than that will just kind of blow you off and not talk to you. I know that's one of the reasons I picked Notre Dame as a college, is because everybody here is willing to help and kind of elevate, you know, your motivation, elevate your sort of projects or kind of purpose in life. And, you know, Engineering Tomorrow also does a great job of that, providing these labs for y'all. So feel free to talk to people. I mean, I'm also a resource if you want to talk to me at any point. I don't think I can talk to all 12,000 of you at once, but I can come close if you really need to. But, you know, talk to people, ask questions. You know, this is not something that's static. Like, you don't have to have this all figured out right now. This is, you know, just an initial thought that you have. And so moving forward, we'll go to my sort of reasoning and my motivation for what I've been working on. So, you know, like the video mentioned and like Megan mentioned, my dad was diagnosed with ALS when I was 13, when I was in 8th grade. So right before I got to high school. So it was around probably a little younger than most of y'all. And, you know, we didn't really know how to handle the disease. I mean, there's still things that we're learning every day in terms of managing the disease. Thankfully, you know, he's on year 8 of the disease right now, and he's still going strong because the average life expectancy for somebody with ALS is 2 to 5 years. So we've been really lucky. But, you know, first couple of years were really, really tough because it's a whole new world. Your worldview changes. What's important changes. There's so many different things that you have to consider now that you know, might have taken for granted before. Things like, for him, talking, moving, breathing. And so, you know, a couple of years into the disease, he was losing the ability to speak. And at the same time, he was also losing the ability to move. So he could no longer, you know, my sophomore year of high school, he no longer could drive his power wheelchair with the joystick. He couldn't use his left hand to drive the joystick anymore. And he couldn't speak. So he had this computer that he was using to drive or to communicate with his eyes. So he'd look, you know, at letters on a screen, sort of like you'd be typing or like texting on your phone. But he was doing it with his eyes onto a computer, and then that would speak for him essentially. And so, you know, I had a lot of programming experience in high school. I was, like I said, you know, I was and still am a nerd. And, you know, my dad was also had a tech background. So we ended up building something originally. That's why it was called iDriving in the video. That's let him control his power wheelchair completely and independently with his eyes. My sophomore year of high school, we called it the Frankenboard because it was just a bunch of computer chips stacked on top of each other. It looked really ugly, but it worked. And so we kept developing it, kept improving it, added some things. So we have a voice control solution now and a mobile joystick. So think about like a remote control car that you would drive. You basically can do that with one of our, you know, with a wheelchair if you have our app. Or you can like talk into a phone and control the chair. So, you know, we kept developing those as we evolved to learn what was needed with his disease, what we needed as caregivers, all that sort of thing. And that sort of motivated why, you know, I've been working on this for so long. And so if we go outside of just my experience as to why this is important, there are about 135,000 people each year that are diagnosed with a neuromuscular disease that affects their mobility annually. And so there are so many people that don't have solutions that are like this, that are designed by users, designed by patients for those patients. And so, you know, on top of that, there are 830 it goes up every year, but there's, you know, probably around 850 to 900,000 people that use power wheelchairs every year. And if you can't control a power wheelchair, then the power wheelchair is useless. So you have, you know, hundreds of thousands of people that need this sort of thing. And a lot of them fall under this category of losing their independence and their quality of life. And there's mental and physical challenges. So not only are you losing the ability to move, talk, and breathe, you're also losing there's probably a lot of stress that you're going through, a lot of anxiety that you're experiencing. You know, you're contemplating deep questions about life when it's, you know, your life is kind of flashing right in front of you with a disease like ALS that doesn't have a cure. And so providing solutions like this that can maintain that quality of life, independence, and give some of that back when a disease takes so much away is really important. And it's something that is needed with technology like this in the industry. And like I said before, like the current solutions that are out there, they work, but they don't work as well as they could for individuals like my dad. And there's often a lot of red tape that you have to go through, especially when you have a disease that progresses. There's not really a solution that progresses with you or gives you multiple options like ours. So seeing, you know, there is some sort of solution that's out there, but we can do it better. You know, that's another motivation that you could have for going into engineering or working in a certain space or on a certain project. And so now getting more to the actual technology. So here's a couple of our app interfaces. We don't have the ugly board anymore. We have a nice little manufacturable board that I learned how to make with my electrical engineering degree here at Notre Dame. And you can see my dad driving, taking a nice little walk in our neighborhood using the interface on his iControl computer. So you can see on the computer, there's a bunch of different arrows and stuff, and you can see that on the right here as well. So what's happening is he's looking at those buttons on the screen. That's sending a signal to that board that you see, that little purple board over there, and then that sends a signal to the chair, and then the chair has a control system. So essentially we're a control system for the control system, and then the chair just goes based on the commands that you send it. You can also see this little, it's since been updated, so it doesn't look like a couple engineers just put a bunch of boxes on a screen and said, oh, that color's nice. So it actually looks nice and kind of branded now. But that's the mobile joystick app that we used previously in order for a caregiver to also have control of the chair, just to make sure there's extra safety features built in, so that, you know, a lot of people with ALS are pretty adventurous. My dad likes to drive really fast and kind of drive dangerous driving, so to speak. You know, those people that like swerve in and out of the highway where they're going, you know, in between traffic trying to get to where they want to go. Sometimes ALS patients use wheelchairs like that. They like to drive very dangerously. So having those extra safety features is really important. But that's kind of how it works. Happy to answer questions about this more, because there's a lot more detail that I could go into. And you don't see the voice control app here, but that is also something that can be used by either a patient or a caregiver. And yeah, so we'll just keep going. And so another thing, like I mentioned earlier, talking to people, working with people, you really want to broaden your horizons of who you reach out to and who can help you in whatever realm of your future that you're going into. So in our case, you know, we talk to people that have done medical devices before, that have sold medical device companies, that have worked with durable medical equipment, which is what a power wheelchair falls under. And so, you know, all these people on the right, including my parents, because they have the experience of, I mean, we've been building this since my sophomore year of high school. You know, we also have these 5 other people, along with about 30 to 40 other advisors that we talk to on varying cadences, where we discuss, okay, what's going well with the startup, what's going poorly with the startup, what do we need for the technology, what do we need on the business side. I had no business experience, and I still have fairly little. I've learned a ton. I still have fairly little in the grand scheme of things, but when I don't know something about business, I can just send an email or a text to one of our advisors and say, hey, I'm confused about this. Hey, what do you think about this? And then they'll have a conversation with me and be willing to help. And so these are some of the ones that have helped us the most. Most of them are also Notre Dame connections, which is really great. I'm not trying to plug Notre Dame, but Notre Dame is a really great place to get support for Force for Good projects like this. And that's on the advisor side, but then you also need, if you're doing a project like this, or really anything that you want to do moving forward, having a team and working together is a really important thing in order to be successful. So I know when I was in high school, I was very much I still am an A-type personality, and I like to do things my way. I like to get them done. But one of the greatest things I've learned from working on the startup is that you're going to have the greatest success when you're working in a team, and when you're a team player, and when you are finding people that have similar values, similar qualities, similar interests that you have, and diverse backgrounds as well, to move anything forward. So for example, Connor and Josh are 2 members of the team. We have a few other members of the team that aren't pictured here, but Connor and Josh have been, you know, with me from the start. And they're both electrical engineers. So, you know, we have a really strong technical background. But then we also have Ellie, who was a marketing major. She actually just graduated in December. She's a marketing major, worked at the Idea Center, has a business background. The common thread between the 4 of us is that we're all interested in moving this technology forward, but we all have our differing expertise, right? So I'm more on the software and kind of the big picture sort of thinking about this. Josh is more hardware focused. He has a little bit more interest and background in that. Connor's kind of the intersection of all of these different things, and Ellie has more of the business background. So working together, we can move forward to advance this. And working with my parents as well, you know, getting that design input from people that really know and experience the problem you're trying to solve is incredibly valuable. And it just so happens that I can call them, I call them pretty frequently anyway. So, you know, being able to talk to them about that is also super helpful, because not only does that help the project move forward, but it also helps them, right? Like at the core of this, I'm trying to help my dad. I'm trying to help my mom, have their quality of life be easier, because I don't know how to do a lot of the caregiving things that my mom and our caregivers do for my dad. I'm still in college, so it's not like I can financially contribute right now. So this is a very tangible thing to connect with them and to help them. So it kind of works both ways. When you serve other people, you also end up getting served yourself. So that's about the team. And then, we have a lot of time, and I could go more in depth into some of these things. We had a lot of questions that came in beforehand, so I wanted to make sure there was like enough time for questions. I can talk for a really long time if we really need to. But I wanted to give everybody kind of the chance to just, like, if you want to pick my brain, if you want to ask about certain things, stuff like that. We could even do a thing where, similar to how you all shared how the lab went, like people are brave enough to get up in front of 12,000 people and share what their motivations are and what, why they want to work on things, what projects they want to work on. We can even do that as well. Trying to make this as interactive as possible for y'all, so it doesn't feel like a class lecture where I'm just blabbing on for an hour. So anyway, yeah, I guess we could start with some questions and then see how that goes.
I'm not sure if you have access to the chat, but Ursuline School already put a question in chat for you. I don't know if you want to stop sharing your screen so you can see everything that's going on in Zoom. But Ursuline has a question, and I'm not sure if Ursuline wants to unmute and ask the question themselves. I see they're there in the classroom. Ursuline, you want to come on up? If not, oh, they did.
Hello. We were wondering. Yeah. I was wondering if you were considering applying or licensing your technologies for other uses. Maybe, I know NASA is looking for like a lot of new technologies to apply. Were you considering licensing out your technologies?
Yeah, so for other uses, that's a fantastic question. So for other uses, we don't actually make the eye tracking technology. So that actually comes from other companies that have developed that, and we kind of use that. We're the bridge essentially between those, whether it's a phone with a voice or caregiver app, or eye tracking computer that has some software on it. We are kind of the bridge between that and the chair. But that sort of connection and that interfacing between those different technologies is something that we're looking to talk to people about, primarily with wheelchair manufacturers and other alternative drive control companies, but even companies like Apple or Microsoft or Google. We're talking to them about different features of their assistive technology and their accessibility practices, so that when they come out with different the new iOS update, or they come out with some new hardware that can integrate better for the people that they might be the smaller segment of their customer population, but they need it just as much. So you end up talking to a lot of different people in a lot of different industries. And one of the companies that we work very closely with, they actually make proximity sensors for power wheelchairs. So you would think wheelchair manufacturers would make their chairs a little bit safer just coming out of the box, but that's not the case. And so there's this company that makes these proximity sensor attachments that prevent you from driving into a wall. You know how I was saying ALS patients are daredevils? It prevents you from driving into a wall, essentially, or running over somebody or something like that. They have grants that, are in other sectors of industry based on their technology. And so with stuff like this, that's also the benefit of talking to other people that have done things like this before, have other ideas. I might not be thinking of another application for this, but somebody who has experience with this sort of stuff does. So if I can talk to them and I can get to know them and their experience and what they've learned, I might be able to figure out what I can apply for the LifeDrive stuff. So it's a great question. I saw also in that comment, it is a medical device that has to go through FDA regulation. We're a Class 1 exempt device because wheelchair accessories and wheelchair components are Class 1 exempt, which means we don't have as much regulation to go through as, say, a power wheelchair would. But you still have to do all your due diligence, have to get everything there anyway. And then insurance coverage, that's another huge barrier for medical devices. And one of the reasons we're looking at some strategic partners right now, like those companies I mentioned before, who have the experience, who've gotten codes, because we don't currently have a set reimbursement code. So the way it would work is you go, you have a client, somebody that wants to use your product, and you have a set price that you kind of ask for initially, and then it gets negotiated with whatever their insurance is. And if it's not covered, and if it's not like a set amount, then you could ask for, say ours goes for like $6,000. You ask for that from the insurance companies, you might only get like a couple hundred or 1,000 or 2,000 if you're lucky, because they negotiate the price because it's not set and it doesn't have a code that has been issued by CMS, which is Center for Medicaid and Medicare. They kind of control all of that, and you end up going lobbying the Congress people and people in Washington to get codes to get them to pay for your products. If you don't get paid for the products, it can't get to as many people. So that was a lot of information. So if people have questions about that, it's pretty complicated stuff once you get into the weeds of it. I'm still relatively new to understanding all of that, but that we spend a lot of time on phone calls trying to just get to the root of some of these problems, because sometimes the people you talk to don't even know either. But yeah, that's kind of, hopefully that answers all y'all's questions. But
I don't see any new questions in the chat. I think you did a great job answering that, by the way, John. But I do have our document here with some questions that our teachers and submitted for their students. So I just want to go, I see Waltrip is still on. Waltrip, I know Spoonie's there, and she had a question. Well, their students had a question was, are there other activities that you're currently working on, or is this what's taking up most of your time?
Yeah, so that's why I put in band. So I love music. I love playing music. I love leading people with music. And so my big other thing is band. So I played piano since I was 5 years old. So I have a musical background, and I got to Notre Dame. My dad was actually in the marching band here at Notre Dame when he went here, played trumpet. But I didn't want to learn trumpet because it would have taken too long. So I learned how to play tuba before my freshman year here, so I could be in the band. One of the directors, I was asking him, because we have auditions and there's cuts and everything. I was like, oh, I want to do something where I'm guaranteed to be in the band. He said, learn tuba. And I laughed at him because I thought he was just joking around, not messing with me. I talked to him 2 other times after that, and he continued to say, like, learn tuba, learn tuba. So then I learned tuba, and they had me learn electric bass too. We have an electric bass player that plays in the stands. So, kind of doing all sorts of things. And then this past year, I got the privilege to be the drum major. So I don't actually play any drums, but I'm the one that's kind of in a different uniform, waving my arms around, conducting the band, leading them, marching out and everything. We get like this big stick that we call a mace, throw it during halftime shows and stuff. It's a lot of fun. And then you end up being you do a lot of administrative work as well, making sure the band is able to run, because we got about 400 people that we want to make sure they have a good experience. So that's my big other thing. And, obviously help out with engineering tomorrow and stuff too. And my classwork is pretty extensive for electrical engineering. So that also takes up a lot of time. I'm pretty busy between those few things. So.
And that's why we're so grateful that you're here today with us. And we actually I have 2 schools that want to speak to you, but I think East Harlem had their hand raised, and I'm going to pin them now. East Harlem, you want to unmute?
Hi, my name is Amy, and I'm a sophomore at East Harlem Scholars Academy. And a question I had for you is, in your opinion, what do you think is the most important skill or necessity that you need in engineering?
Being willing to fail, and being willing to fail and bounce back from it, learn from it, and move forward from it. A term that you might hear pretty frequently is fail forward. If you can be comfortable making mistakes and acknowledging that you're not perfect all the time, then you're going to be able to learn so much more. You're going to be able to make so much more progress by acknowledging when there are areas for you to improve. The biggest challenge of running a startup is not knowing what you don't know. So half of the time when I'm on calls with advisors or I'm talking to people in the industry, I'm not even asking them specific questions. I'm just trying to get at what I don't know, so then I can figure out who next to talk to about those questions, and kind of just get as much experience as possible and get as much knowledge as possible to be like, okay, I don't know this. I'm comfortable admitting I don't know this. What can I do about it now? I have an example of a story where this kind of clicked for me. It didn't really click until about a year and a half ago. I was doing a pitch for, at the time, this person ran the Idea Center. It's the main innovation hub at Notre Dame. I was doing a pitch for him, and we went through the pitch, had our answers, all set for the Q&A. I was really excited because they're like, all right, we think you're one of the better people to do this pitch. Like, you're going to do great. You got a great idea. You're going to do awesome. And so I go in with a lot of confidence, give the pitch, give my answers, and he's asking me a couple of answers that asking me a couple of questions I've never thought of, things that I've just never considered, because I was at that time not really balancing the mission and the idealistic parts of our project with the realistic versions of it. So in terms of like getting investment, you have to think about some things to do that. And I wasn't really thinking about those. I was kind of thinking more greater good. Like, obviously you don't want to not think about that, but you want to think about that realistically so that it can get to some people. Anyway, the devil's in the details. He basically completely obliterated my entire pitch in about a minute and asked me a series of questions that I had no response to. And if I gave a response, it was awful. I mean, it was one of the biggest flops I've ever had pitching, with arguably the most important pitch that I had to give. And there was no stakes. It wasn't like anything was riding on it except for reputation and being able to talk to him and get advice from him. But I learned afterwards that he wanted to continue talking to me. So I was under the impression that when I messed up that pitch, when I didn't have those answers to those questions, I just wouldn't get help, right? Like, if I failed and I'm all by myself, like, that's it, I'm done. I can't move forward after that. He reached out the next day being like, hey, if you want to set up a meeting, I'm happy to talk to you about all this stuff, because clearly, like, this is the area that you need to improve on. This is where you need some advice and guidance. And then it clicked. It was like, oh, I can fail and be okay, because people are going to be able to help me through that. It is something that you are never going to be avoid. You're never going to avoid. I know that engineers are very often perfectionists. I am definitely a perfectionist. Like, you're never going to avoid failing or messing up or not knowing something. So the more you can embrace that and use it to your advantage, it's actually going to help you a lot more than if you ignore it. So that's kind of what my most important piece of advice would be. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, like, get comfortable with making mistakes and then being willing to learn from them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, East Harlem, for that question. Great job. And Ursuline has another question. They have their hand raised. But before we go to Ursuline, I'm not sure if you got to see, John, in the chat, Scholars Academy shared what problem they'd like to solve, and has to do with transportation and being environmentally friendly. So thank you, scholars, for typing in the chat. That's awesome. I believe that was Lucas. Thank you, Lucas. And let's go now to Ursuline. Are you ladies ready?
How difficult was it to get sponsors to afford your technology? Because I want to form a business, and I'm going through a program to help me form a business, and one of my major concerns is affordability.
I got like 90% of that. Is there any way you could get closer to the microphone so I can hear you a little bit better? Thanks.
I have a question about affordability, because I have a product myself, and one of my major concerns is affordability. How hard was it to get like sponsors for your company?
Yeah, so are you talking about customers or are you talking about investors?
Investors.
Yeah, so we are in a bit of a unique position with that, because we've gotten a lot of grant money and a lot of non-equity based assistance in moving our project forward. So my first piece of advice would be avoid investors if you can, because it's frustrating. Anyway, we don't need to go into that right now. If you want to ask about it, you can. But anyway, grant funding, non-dilutive funding, especially if you have a product, like if you have a product already in high school, there's going to be like infinite opportunities for you to just like look at different programs to get free money, basically, and just move forward with that. You just have to find what you can fit into and have your pitches ready and be able to like answer questions and all of that. But you know, that side of it, unless you're like already scaling, which you might be, you might not be. I don't know. Especially if you're still developing in high school. I mean, we weren't scaling in high school at all. We were just developing stuff. There's a lot of R&D, like research and development grants. There's a lot of different, I mean, again, if you're doing that in high school, people are going to want to support you. So there's a lot of free money out there that I would advise you go to first before you go to investors. When you talk to investors, and you know, we can talk about this more if you want to. The biggest challenge is a lot of the times the investors are going to want to help you the most, especially with a force for good project, aren't going to understand how your project works. So our industry is a very niche industry. It's smaller. We would basically get kind of charitable investors is the term I'd use, because they know they'd still get a return on their investment, but it wouldn't be as big as like a venture capitalist firm would be looking for, essentially. And so when you're talking to them, one of the biggest challenges is, you know, they don't necessarily understand everything that you're doing, and they won't understand timelines, or they don't understand kind of the specifics of what like problems you need to solve and why you can't just solve them. So like take insurance coverage, for example, that's a 5-year process to get a code. An investor that is not in the med device space or not in the DME space isn't going to understand that from us and be like, oh, well, I gave you all this money. Why couldn't you get paid for it, you know, in 6 months, right? And you have certain pressures with that are pretty challenging. So long story short, go for the free money before you have to go for the money that comes with strings attached. And if you have questions about that, I'm happy to talk about that more, you know, offline too, but or now if nobody else has questions. But
I think we do have some more questions, but I have to say, John, you've been so gracious with offering additional connecting with you offline, which is amazing. And I think some schools might take advantage of that. So I have another question from East Harlem. So I'm going to go back to that screen. Hold on. Let me go ahead. Can you unmute?
Okay, so my second question is, why did the company's name switch from iDrive to LiveDrive?
Yeah, so this was related to the story that I told you earlier, but it happened before actually. So we were trying to figure out how to rebrand it because it had been iDriving for a really, really long time. And one of the things with our space, if you have a disability and you're in a power wheelchair and you have to get different solutions to help you, there's something called an insurance. I can put my contact. I'll throw my email in the chat for the person that just asked that. Lost my train of thought. Oh, insurance decision tree. So the insurance decision tree basically says, okay, I have a power wheelchair, or I can't walk, I can't move, I need a power wheelchair. Great. I have a regular joystick that controls that. Then the next step is, okay, I can't control my joystick anymore. So let's go to an alternative solution. Let's use kind of like a headset. We call it a head array, that you like move your neck to like press the buttons on the head array, and then you move forward and you move the chair and control the chair with that. Well, let's say I don't have neck control anymore. Then I get another solution through insurance called a sip and puff, which, you know, you sip and puff in a tube to control the chair essentially. Now, let's say that doesn't work and my lung capacity isn't strong enough. Then I need something else. And there are, you know, leg controls and all sorts of other things that you can get. There's also, at that point, at the very bottom of the decision tree is eye control. So you have to go through insurance, oftentimes like 4 to 6 months of getting all these other solutions before you can even get approved or considered for an eye control solution. So if you just go with iDriving, and if that's what you're going to do, you've kind of limited yourself already by having only that be an option, because it's a new technology. It's not going to come in at the top of that decision tree. It's not going to get recommended more frequently. It's going to get recommended last. Plus, it's not fully covered yet. So you have all these things working against you. So knowing that, we needed to rebrand, we needed to rethink about how this, you know, again, that idea wasn't going to work. So how are we going to change it? How are we going to make it work for what we needed to do? And so we had the voice control, we have the caregiver mobile joystick control. So because we don't have just eye control, we have these other things that can be implemented earlier on in a disease progression, then we needed to also rebrand the company to express that. So Life Drive is something that we can help you throughout the course of your life or throughout the course of the progression of your disease, as opposed to when you're only limited with your eyes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I have another. Do you have one more question before I switch to another school? I have somebody with their hand up. No? All right. I'm going to go to St. Barnabas. I see you guys are ready. Let me spotlight. St. Barnabas has a question. Can you unmute? There we go.
Hello, you can hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask John that about in the beginning, he mentioned that we should be okay with making mistakes. So I was going to ask him that as a sophomore, when he started, was it hard to stay focused? And if so, why wasn't it?
Yeah. So my dad hates when I talk about it like this. So it was his idea. He likes to press that it was my idea, and he came up with it. And we started working on it together after that. But at the beginning, I had no real experience. Like, I did a little bit of programming. I kind of knew what Java was, or what a for loop was. I didn't really know a whole lot at that point. And we had this great. My dad, like, ALS does not affect your cognitive ability at all. My dad's brain is going at 100 miles an hour all day, every day. Like, it's insane. Anyway, he came up with this idea, and the first thing that I'm thinking about is, I can help him. I can bond. Like, I can connect with him. The second thing I'm thinking of is, I don't know how to do any of this. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I am just taking direction. I am just kind of following whatever he says, and I'm going to learn along the way. And sometimes it was like really long days of just trying things out and then it not working, and trying things out and then it not working again. And then guess what? We tried again, and then it still wouldn't work. And then we'd go weeks of trying to solve the same problem. We'd finally fix it or whatever. When that happens and you're 15 years old, it's really easy to just be like, I don't want to do it anymore. It doesn't work. I don't know how to do it. Okay, whatever. Oh, well, too bad. Like, that's a pretty harsh way to say it, but like, that's just part of like growing up and not being mature enough at that point. Yeah, I definitely wasn't mature enough at that point. Yeah, but some days felt really, really long because you're working on this thing and you don't have that instant gratification. You don't have that instant feedback of like, I'm doing this right. I'm on the right track. Like, you just have the instant feedback of, I'm doing this completely wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe like I'm just like failing at this. I'm like failing at a lot of things. Like, so many things kind of just like come up all at once, and then that can motivate you away from wanting to work on something. So sometimes you just have to sit in the discomfort or the stress or the mistakes until you figure it out. And you will figure it out, and you will find people that help you. My dad and I were pretty much able to figure out every problem that we had with this. And we still have problems that we're figuring out right now too, with how to make this the best solution possible. But when you're that young and you're trying to do something at that stage in your life, like, it's understandable and completely natural. And I would be shocked if you didn't have times when you were like, I don't want to do this. I mean, in college, I still have that. I mean, like, we're all still kids. Like, I'm talking to you, like, I know all these things. I'm like the keynote speaker or whatever. I'm like 21 years old. I'm only like 5 years older than most of you, right? So like, I'm not that removed. I mean, I am pretty decently removed, but I'm not that removed. I'm old now, but like, I'm not that old, I guess. So, like, I guess my point being, you kind of are always going to have that extra motivation or that extra doubt. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes imposter syndrome kicks in. Sometimes, you just, I don't know. It just feels very discouraging. Don't do it by yourself, and don't criticize yourself for feeling that way, because it's natural. It's understandable. It should be expected, and it's useful. Because if you didn't care about what you were doing, you wouldn't feel that sort of discomfort. If you didn't care about what you're doing, you just give up and do something else, right? But if you're feeling something related to it, then that means it's important to you, and all the more reason to keep going, right? So hopefully that answers the question.
That definitely did answer the question, right, St. Barnabas? Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have about 10 minutes left. I just want to throw out like a last call for people to throw in their questions in chat or to raise their hand to unmute. I know you've been here for, it's been a great day, and I know that you're probably ready to start wrapping up the day, but I want to say just please, any last questions? Oh, Constance has thrown in chat something for our teachers and our students, but I want to say, I see Megan has popped on. I know she probably wants to say thank you to John as well. Any last questions before we wrap up for John? Don't be shy. I see. Is that your hand raised, East Harlem? I think he's back with one more question. Yes.
Yes, we have one last question.
Go for it.
Are you thinking, or like, did you have in mind to create technology similar to this for like people with different types of disabilities?
Yeah. So I'd always, even growing up, like I'd always start projects and do little things or like create little things and then like lose interest in them pretty quickly. But I was always like inventing something or like making something, or like I'd always get like whatever I could find in our fridge and then just like combine it all together into these like weird drinks and like take one sip and then dump it out, like stuff like that. I was always like building sort of weird things, or kind of thinking about what else could I be doing, I guess, in terms of like working on projects or stuff like that. And same thing applies now. So once you start having ideas like this, and engineers are always looking for ways to improve things, different projects to work on, whatever, you're always going to be thinking about other things. So you're always going to have other ideas that pop into your head. So one idea for something that, I just had the other day was a speech recognition app that basically would track your progression of your speech and let you know, this would be specifically for ALS patients, but you could apply it to other people. Like if you had a speech recognition app that kind of took your baseline speech as you progressed and lost it, kind of tracked where it was going to the point where, okay, if it senses that you're going enough of a path down of losing your speech, then it kind of indicating, okay, you need to be logging your voice so that you can use it on any like apps that you use to communicate later. Because that was one of my dad's biggest regrets, was not logging his voice, because now you heard it in the commercial. That's like the standard computer voice that comes from the Tobii computer, which is the eye control computer. So like stuff like that like just pops in my head every once in a while, because I'm taking a class right now on computer science, like health tech innovations and stuff like that. So it just like came to my brain the other day. But yeah, I mean, you're kind of, once you start, you can't really stop thinking about ideas. So I'm sure, I mean, y'all are high schoolers, you're all bright, you're all are engineering focused and interested. So like, just keep writing them down. That 99 of them might be terrible, and then you might have one awesome one. At some point, you're going to have to go through the 99 to get to the one awesome one. So like, I don't know. That's the long-winded way of saying, yeah, I think about stuff all the time. My brain's always going. So
thank you so much. Our school really enjoyed your presence. East Harlem.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for your questions. They were great.
I want to say thank you to John Sexton. We're going to start wrapping up our day. I think our team has put the exit ticket in the link. We want to make sure that the students complete an exit ticket and let us know how we did today. I hope everybody had an amazing day. Again, John Sexton, thank you so much for the time you dedicate to Engineering Tomorrow, the time you dedicate to your entire mission. We are so proud to be involved with you, and we're so honored to have you building a lab for us. And hopefully next year, we'll have our next virtual lab day where you will be presenting the lab that you designed for Engineering Tomorrow.
Yeah, no, excited to be working with y'all. It's a great organization, and I'm happy to help however I can. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you to all your teachers who signed up and had everybody here live today. I want to say thank you to the amazing students who got up and shared with everybody. You guys are amazing. And yes, thank you. I see all the hands waving. Amazing day. And hopefully we will see you for our next special event, which is on February 15th for water treatment. And we also have our amazing space day coming up in March as well. And we also have EV, electric vehicles, coming up. So have your teachers sign up for all those days so we can see you all again. Phenomenal job today, everybody. And can't wait to see you all next in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.